JBN, we keep you informed. Jamaica's Most Wanted, episode 13, Eldon Calvert. Let me say none of the episodes in this series is to glorify any of these criminals, but it's been used as an avenue to say to the young people, eventually crime doesn't pay. Most, if not all, of these subjects died violently and at a young age. In November of 2007, the police placed a reward of $1 million bounty on the head of Calvert, identifying him as among the island's most wanted. The circular noted that Calvert was wanted on several counts of murder and shootings committed in 2005 and 2006. Killings directly linked to Calvert. September 10, 2006, the gunslaying of Robert Green of Salem, St. James, the operator of a cook shop. September 2006, the killing of 4 persons in his hometown, Megatop, Salt Spring, St. James. Kansi Jarrett, Eldon Legister, Rupert Green, and Horace Daly. October 2006, a triple killing in the same community. November 13, 2006, killing of Archie Campbell, an alleged eyewitness to the shooting of Robert Green. November 2006, attack on a police car in Salt Spring. 3 police officers were injured in that incident. December 2006, a double killing, a taxi operator, Errol Dixon, and a shopkeeper, Ramon Reed, at Bucktoe Lane, Salt Spring. He was further implicated in the killing of 5 persons in one continuous event: Ewan Cole, Devon Harris, Lloyd Ishmael, Leston Morris, and a Ransford McFarlane in Flower Hill near Salt Spring. In addition, Harris was beheaded and his head dumped 9 miles away from the scene of the murders. The attack was said to be a reprisal for the murder of Calvert's brother the previous January. On Monday, January 21, 2008, almost 2 months after the $1 million bounty was placed on his head, 25-year-old Calvert was captured by members of Operation Kingfish. His capture occurred at the usual special police operation hours before dawn. Contrary to what many had figured, its arrest was effectuated without much fanfare in a place described as this rustic rural community, Woodgrove, St. James, near Wetabit in Trelawney.
One of the country's most wanted men is behind bars this evening, ending a more than 2-year search for a man described as a serial killer.
Eldon Calvert, an alleged gangster, was taken into custody in a pre-dawn operation in Trelawney this morning. Latoya Johnson has a story.
The police had placed a $1 million bounty on the head of Calvert, who has been linked to at least 14 murders. The 25-year-old was also believed to be involved in several shootings around his hometown of Salt Spring in St. James. Calvert, who hails from the Megatop area of Salt Spring, made the country's most wanted list 2 years ago. He managed to elude the cops, shooting his way out of several dragnets. This morning, a team led by senior members of the Operation Kingfish Task Force went to Woodgrove, Trelawney, where Calvert was nabbed. A woman, her brother, and her boyfriend were also detained by the police.
This is the house that the Kingfish team swooped down on early this morning and nabbed one of Jamaica's most wanted men, Eldon Calvert. Just recently, a $1 million bounty had been placed on Calvert's head, who was wanted in connection with several killings in the Salt Spring area of St. James. Many joyful residents converged on the scene this morning, happy that a man with such a background was taken out of their community.
They were quickly whisked away to Kingston, where they are to be interrogated. As news spread that one of Jamaica's most wanted had been captured in their community, residents of Woodgrove expressed shock. They appealed to the police to visit the area more often.
If they could come in a little more often and do some checking, because sometimes you don't know what is what. And so many come in and you don't know the faces. You just see them coming in and going, and you don't know who is it. You just know it's a strange person. So therefore, sometimes we really suspect them and said, well, boy, that can be so and so. But therefore, only because you don't know what is behind it, you can't say nothing.
Calvert first attracted the full attention of the police force in 2006, following the killing of his brother and several subsequent reprisal shootings. 1 year later, 5 persons were killed in Flower Hill in what the police believe was also a reprisal for his brother's murder. In that incident, one of the victims was beheaded. He was also linked to the murder of 2 men in Bokto Lane in December 2006. 1 month earlier, the detectives reported that Calvert was among a group of men who opened fire on members of a police party, injuring 3 cops. The murder of 4 persons last September was also blamed on Calvert. It's believed that he was one of the persons the police were searching for when they raided Tivoli Gardens last week Sunday. Another notorious St. James gangster, Cedric Murray, better known as Doggy, reportedly left that community minutes before the police operation.
Reportedly, Calvert wept when he was held by detectives and begged the police not to kill him. 2 other men and a woman who were holed up in the 6-bedroom, 1-story house with Calvert were also held in the special police operation. Residents of the quiet farming community said they were surprised that a man wanted by the police was living in the community. "Me don't even know say a wanted man in our backyard," a male resident commented. "You talk about backyard, him in my house, my bedroom, and me don't even know him," countered a family member of the owners of the house in which Calvert was staying. The man said Calvert came and went to the house, occupied by his niece and his nephew, who were among those taken into custody. But it was clear that the Woodgrove residents, who were apparently fearful of giving their names, were happy that the man on the police's most wanted list had been removed from their community. "The police and soldiers did a good job. We don't want a wanted man around here," said one of the residents. At the time of his capture, Calvert was, for all intent and purpose, in the league of a serial killer. Over a short period spanning less than 2 years, Calvert was implicated in at least 16 murders, which included at least 1 killing where the victim was beheaded. One of the murders for which Calvert was wanted, and of which the police and Office of the Director of Public Prosecution (DPP) thought they could convict Calvert on, was that of Robert Green, the deceased cookshop operator. Calvert's trial on that case began in the St. James Home Circuit Court, presided over by Justice Gloria Smith, a senior judge of the Home Circuit Court system. To prove that Calvert and his 2 co-defendants, his brother, music band operator Gleason Calvert, and a Michael Heron, had killed Green, the prosecution was relying on a statement from an Archley Campbell. They were relying on Campbell's statement instead of his live testimony because Campbell was not around to give evidence in person. Campbell, an alleged eyewitness to the killing of Green, was himself shot and killed on November 13, 2006. Detective Sergeant Michael Sergio, the officer in charge of the investigation, was called by the prosecution to do 2 primary things: testify that Campbell had given an 8-page statement to the police naming Calvert and his co-defendants as the men who had murdered Green, and 2, that the signatory was indeed Campbell. Sergio came with credentials. He was not just any old investigator, he was a supervisor at the Montego Bay Criminal Investigation Branch (CIB), who had supervised many police officers in criminal prosecutions and had himself testified in many cases. The way things were shaping up, it seems that it would be on his words that a jury would decide Calvert and his co-defendants' fate. However, having previously received the 8-page statement, sharp-witted defense lawyers Roy Fairclough, Trevor Holin, Tamika Spence, and Chimu Paris had thought something wrong. According to Fairclough, we could see that what was 14-10-06, the left-hand side of the 0 on the 10 was a little thick, seeming to suggest that it had been an 11. Thereafter, the defense attorneys had contracted the services of handwriting expert Beverly East. By the time the trial started, they had East's report as an ace. Of this, the prosecution had no clue. The prosecution would be blind-sided. The prosecution attempted to put the statement into evidence. However, the defense objected, noting that it had evidence that the statement was a fake. The jurors were sent out of the courtroom to facilitate a voir dire, a trial within a trial, to determine the authenticity of the statement. The prosecution was served with East's report, which stated in part that the person who had written the statement was also the person who had signed it. This Beverly East was not just any old document examiner. She was recognized in the field of handwriting experts as first class. No doubt a result of the reputation of the suspects, Calvert in particular, Campbell had not given a written statement to Sergio. However, taking what Campbell told him, Sergio, a 26-year police veteran, proceeded to write out a statement, all of 8 pages, in which Calvert, his brother, and Aaron were fingered in the killing of Green. At the bottom of each page, Sergio affixed the signature A. Campbell and dated the pages November 14, 2006. But 24 hours before the statement was reportedly written and signed by Sergio, Campbell was shot to death at his cook shop in Mege, Top Hill in Salt Spring. Upon learning this, Sergio altered the November date on the forged statement to read October 14, 2006. Tipped off or otherwise, when the case resumed 3 days later, the prosecution was left with egg splattered all over its face. Not only was the evidence proffered by Sergio false, Sergio had, like so many others on the other side of the law that he, Sergio, had pursued, fled from justice. Reportedly, he had left on a flight the afternoon that the prosecution had written to his boss, the police commissioner, to arrest and charge him with various crimes, perversion of justice and forgery heading the list. The case was in essence dead in the water. The director of prosecutions herself was called upon to inform the court that the case could not proceed against Calvert and his co-defendants. Justice Gloria Smith in agony weighed in on the matter, noting that there ought to be legislation or rules in place to mandate that the defense disclose to the prosecution when there is an intention to call expert witnesses. The defense, the judge must have felt, had exposed what may well have been a long-standing practice of certain police officers, a conviction at any cost, even perjury. Justice Smith was moved to lament, "This is a very sad day in the history of justice." Defense counsel wisely recommended that every case that Detective Sergio had a hand in should be re-examined. If he did it once, he may have done it before. This attempt by the police to pervert justice led to the case against Calvert and his co-defendants to be thrown out by the presiding judge. The murder case against Eldon Calvert, the alleged leader of the Montego Bay-based Stonecrusher gang, and the two other men was thrown out yesterday because a policeman fabricated a witness statement. Fabricated. Stonecrusher gang members freed on fake evidence, Barbara Gill wrote in the Jamaica Gleaner on February 4, 2012. Reportedly, Calvert's brother Eldon Calvert remarked after the court ruling that justice has been served. If any good came out of it, it was a pronouncement of a new policy. This new policy held that in a case where a statement or statements of a witness who is either dead or cannot be found is to be put into evidence, this category of statements would have to be first submitted for examination by a handwriting expert. Gleason was released immediately while Calvert and Heron were remanded as they were facing other murder charges. 2 months after that aborted trial, on March 9, 2012, Calvert was released on $3 million bail while Heron was bailed in the sum of $1.5 million. The men were ordered to report to the Freeport police station every day and were required to be at their homes between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. The three were also ordered to surrender their travel documents. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Paul Llewellyn, did not oppose the bail application, citing several concerns with the case. Reportedly, not everyone in Calvert's Salt Spring community looked with favor upon his impending release. Allegedly, some men in a section of the community were not happy with Calvert's impending return and vowing not to let him come back and run the place. As such, following the aborted trial and thinking that Calvert had been released from custody, some factions began killing persons from Calvert's section of the community. Reportedly, this resulted in the killing of a resident, Roydale Hall, in the wee hours of Saturday morning. Allegedly, the gunmen, believing Calvert was in the community and was probably celebrating his release, were reportedly on their way to spoil the party and to get rid of everyone they saw. It was while on their murderous sojourn they encountered a taxi with Hall heading to where the supposedly party was being held. They reportedly stopped the vehicle and took everyone out. Hall ran off and was chased, shot, stabbed, beaten, and killed by the gunmen. This gave the other persons who were in the cab, including at least one child, time to flee and escape. Reportedly, police who were in the community challenged the gunmen who fled during a shootout. A man like Calvert would no doubt not let such acts go unpunished. Fearing a bloody war, as if a bloody war was not already the order of the day, army and police personnel flooded the area while residents cowered in fear. With all his top lieutenants dead, mostly all killed by police, Calvert found himself alone. On Tuesday, September 9, 2014, Calvert was shot and killed in Salt Spring. Several other persons were reportedly shot during the incident. At 31 years old, Eldon Calvert, crime boss extraordinaire, was dead. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily uploads.